Hey, welcome to Seek First to Understand, where we attempt to dig into some issues and get the facts right so that we can have conversations about really important things in ways that matter and are helpful, and there's not a bunch of yelling, but there's actually movement towards solutions. And here today, I am in Raleigh with Nan Gerges and Rebecca Gitlin, and you are both attorneys that have
Yes,
statements.
that's right.
And I'll let you guys tell them about who you are so they can know why I came all the way to Raleigh just to talk to you guys.
You can go first.
So both Rebecca and I work as immigration attorneys at Gerges Law. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if many people know this about me. I think a lot of our amazing clients do, but I'm an immigrant myself. I'm not a U.S.-born individual. And I had to go through the immigration system.
Okay.
I remember it, and it was very.
How old were you when you went there?
I was young. I remember around 8 or so, but I was in Chicago,
Okay.
and I remember taking the oath of allegiance. I even remember the interview. My mom took me to everything, and it was a blessing in disguise because it gave me the ability to also understand what a lot of our clients and some of their children have to go through. And I came from a country where it was, in many ways, a war zone against Christians. And so I can relate to a lot of individuals that we are fortunate enough to serve.
So I started as an immigration attorney the Monday after the first travel ban went into effect. And I was drawn to it because of the humanitarian aspects. I saw what people were facing when they were applying for asylum, the difficulties that they were up against. So
You're talking about people who are trying to do it legally,
yes,
and that's a challenge.
yes, it's
Yeah.
so challenging to
It's not easy to become a citizen.
No. It's really not.
Also, tell me about that.
So, okay, we help people apply for asylum affirmatively.
Mhm.
So you can always come to the United States and request asylum and say, I'm fleeing persecution in my home country.
Mhm.
This isn't something that America just came up with. This is because of a 1951 United Nations treaty. It's an international agreement. You know, people should be able to leave their country and go to another country safely. If they're persecuted because of their race, religion, nationality, particular political opinion, or a particular social group that they're in. So that's why people are coming here to save their lives. And that's very difficult for them.
Very good. Okay. And about how many people, what percentage of the people that you run into are in I'm being persecuted, I'm running for my life?
It's hard to say because we do work on a lot of different types of cases, but from definitely Central America, most all of them are fleeing for their lives. Or, it's women and children who have been threatened with death by cartels
Okay.
and that type of thing. So they're coming here to save their lives. The journey across the border isn't one that you would take to get a job. It's one that you would take because you're trying to survive.
Okay. One of the things we talked about before the video was the concept that there are legal ways for any human to walk to America, right? It's not breaking a law. As
No.
long as, what do you have to do to make sure you're not breaking a law?
You go to a point of entry and you say, I'm afraid for my life. Can I apply for asylum?
So any human on earth can walk up to any port of entry in America and say something like that.
If you're a war,
You can say it.
I think there's an exception for war criminals.
Or, yeah.
That's the only exception.
Well, I mean, yeah. But I mean, the concept of it's even for a war criminal to walk to that spot and say I'd like asylum is a legal thing to do by U.S. law.
Yes.
Okay, because a lot of times people have this idea that anybody who's coming is doing it illegally if they're not coming in on a plane with a work visa in their hand.
Yeah. Actually, and that's something that I think, I don't think an individual who doesn't practice immigration law, and quite frankly, lawyers that don't practice immigration law as well, do not understand the concept that you can lawfully go to a port of entry and seek asylum, and to inform any CBP officer, Border Patrol officer that is, to not accept their request, it's actually contra the law.
Okay, so they're required. So if they follow the laws set up by our Congress, if someone walks up to a legal point of injury, doesn't try to call under something or over something or something, actually walks in straight, as long as they approach that person and apply for asylum, that is a legal action and they've done nothing wrong.
Absolutely, you are correct. There's actually a process in place, and in that regard, depending upon whether or not they have a prior order of removal, they will have some form of reasonable or credible fear interview.
Mm-hmm.
So the procedure is embedded within the laws. As Ms. Gitman had indicated, this is because we are a signatory to a treaty, and Congress has gone right ahead and created statutes to ensure that we are proceeding in accordance to our duties.
Okay.
And so it is completely legal, and there are processes that have been put into place for decades in order for individuals to be able to follow this procedure.
Okay.
This is something that the United States has been doing for decades. America's word needs to mean something to the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to accept refugees as they've been defined by the United Nations.
So okay, that was the first thing I wanted to get at, because I know a lot of people there seems to be some people seem to think that just coming toward us is somehow breaking a law, when in fact that's actually the essence of
The asylum law.
of the laws that are in place, set up by our Congress.
That is correct.
Yes, okay, that was important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Well,
even if you come to the United States, you can apply for asylum within a year. So you can be here and affirmatively apply, not just at a border, but to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services within a year of coming to the U.S.
so someone can fly in
That's correct.
from Europe, Asia, anywhere, and they have a year to decide. Okay, I think this will be outside the place.
That is correct. And they can do it, so a lot of times what individuals will do is they will come in with a visa, and they will then apply affirmatively with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Asylum Division and proceed in that manner. They have that year. But if that year expires, for many different reasons, you're not aware of asylum laws, you don't know how to proceed, nobody ever informed you, or you were misinformed, you can file the asylum application, and under certain circumstances you may find yourself in an exception category, but generally speaking it will go into what is called withholding of removal. That cannot be affirmatively decided. That has to be decided by a judge.
Okay.
But it's the same asylum law. The standard is higher, but it's the same asylum law.
What other things do you see people just don't understand about how our legal system is set up to deal with people who are coming into our country, or people who have been in our country, who are not citizens?
People don't understand the ICE's priorities, I guess. People think they're deporting people with serious criminal histories. ICE is put under a lot of pressure these days, and they don't have the discretion that they used to have. Attorneys from the Department of Homeland Security don't have the discretion that they used to have. So it's not just somebody with serious criminal history. It's parents who've lived here for 30 years, who have U.S. citizen children, and no criminal history. And people are saying, my hands are tied. We're trying to remove them, and it's just that wasn't the case years ago, but now their discretion is gone.
Not to mention, also, there are individuals who have, for example, TPS, and have had TPS for a very long time.
What is TPS?
It's a temporary protected status. So there are certain countries that have been designated as TPS countries where an individual who had been here can apply for TPS. And they're trying to take away TPS, but what we're not recognizing is, one, I don't believe that it's being done with the appropriate information being incorporated into such a decision. And additionally, we have people who have, been law-abiding individuals who have children, some grandchildren, and have had generations here and are paying into the economy, and now we're saying, sorry, you need to go back. Well, that in and of itself is going to create a lot of problems economically, and also issues emotionally for the families, which can have ripple effects beyond what we can sit here and discuss.
Well, I mean, I guess a comeback for that, they haven't done anything wrong except for the fact that they are not in the country legally.
TPS holders are in the country
Okay,
legally.
yeah, okay, I didn't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. And that's what's unique. A lot of individuals don't realize that. TPS holders are here legally, and they do have employment authorization to be here. And many of them come from war-ridden countries.
Okay.
And that's part and parcel of why it is that the United States, who really, we're very fortunate to be in this country. And as those individuals who are fortunate to be here, we need to recognize that that comes with responsibility. And such responsibility that we've seen is to ensure that when there are individuals in need, whether it be through the TPS designation system that was, that's set up within our laws, or for purposes of asylum, or just the immigration, procedures and processes that are put into place, we need to facilitate that, not to detract or take away from it. Because what we're seeing right now is not just it's the criminalization of immigration. And immigration shouldn't be criminalized. Immigration should be, we should clear a pathway and ensure that we get more money into our economy and ensure that the individuals that are here, the citizens that are here, are reaping the benefits. And not just, not recognizing the value that they receive, because they do receive a value in turn.
So it seems like there's a number of different things going on. One of them is, I think it sounds to me like when I hear the roar of people out there, the problem is illegal immigration. But a lot of the stuff that's happening is not addressing illegal immigration in any way. It's just making legal immigration harder.
That is correct. And I think that's something that is being ignored because it's easier to, going back on what we talked about earlier before we started taping, it's easier for certain sound bites to have that exclamation point, if you will, at the end, by talking about the word illegal immigration or illegal this. Really what we're seeing is a breakdown of the legal immigration system. And that's a huge issue because that's not going to be facilitating anything good in the end. You're not going to see the economy, these are effects that we'll see down the line. You're not going to see the economy thriving and continue to thrive down the line. It's great that it's thriving now, but you have to realize that's because of things that happened a while ago. That's usually the way things transpire. And so we want to continue to see our country prosper. And in order to do that, as we have been doing in the past, is to ensure that the legal immigration system is better suited and is more capable of, creating further legal immigrants and further paths to citizenship, not taking all of that away.
So what would be I know the answer to this question, but I want to throw it out there.
Yes.
I want to hear your answer to this question. Okay, so there's two different problems. There's the legal immigration that's going on that, for whatever reason, we seem to think, well, it'll help us if we slow that down.
Yeah.
But that's not really addressing the other problem, which is the number of, like we've talked about this. It depends on which side you're talking to. It's either illegal immigrants or undocumented aliens.
Or undocumented individuals.
Individuals
Yeah,
are having.
I don't even say
You know,
I don't like the word alien. I understand, it's a term.
And see, if you say it one way, certain people assume you belong to one group, and if you say it the other way, they communicate. And I like to keep people confused about what group I belong to.
That's good.
So I'm always switching terms around so nobody can pin me down easily. And but it seems like if I don't have any data, that if we could just make legal immigration work and remove the whatever this group is we're calling them who do not have papers, who are in this country illegally and are undocumented, why don't we just take them out and then we bring in the legal? Why can't we just do that?
Oh.
Do you mean just remove 12 million people? What do you...
That's why I'm throwing that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, who are you going to start with? Like, how does this?
How does it happen? And I think that's actually really important to point out. If the government is fully aware that that 12 million that there is this 12 million group out there, what are they proposing?
And that, as we already said, that's my biggest thing. Is I think a lot of the yelling from both sides is just to distract us from the fact there are 12 million people living in America who are illegal or undocumented or whatever phrase you want to put on it. And I'm sorry, I would talk somehow. I'll talk a little bit. We've shown repeatedly we can't remove them economically because the economy can't stand it. Georgia tried it in 2012, 2013. Alabama tried it the next year. They lost billions of dollars. Just not get rid of everybody who's undocumented. Just trying to keep them out of Alabama for a year. And I don't know if I give the milk one too. The United States Dairy
I think
Association,
that's important.
whose job is to make money for dairy farmers. This is not anything resembling a political group. They just want to make money for milk farmers. That's all they care about. That's their whole purpose in life. And they paid for a study at Texas A&M University, which is a very good agricultural school and not a liberal bastion of education. What would happen if we got rid of all the immigrants out of the dairy industry? And the answer was it would double the price of milk. We'd have to kill half the cows and half the farmers would go under. And so,
How did they respond after they got that information?
people just said, when I give that information, people just drop their jaw. They're like, because nobody tells them this. Everybody's too busy saying one extreme or the other and not dealing with the fact there are 12 million people. I'd have to check the numbers again. That's basically Georgia or Illinois.
Either way, it's a big.
Yeah, you have to take either Atlanta or Chicago, move all those people out of the country, and then come back and get Decatur and any other Illinois town you want to pick.
You from Illinois?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
from-
I was like, how does he know all these stuff?
I'm a weirdo. But so step one, if your policy is let's take all the illegal immigrants out, let's send them back to their country of origin, let them fill the paperwork, come back in legally, it's a humanitarian nightmare beyond comprehension. But even if you can ignore it, the financial and logistical nightmare is beyond anything you can imagine, because just the logistics of getting 12 million people anywhere. If we could all get them on one boat that was going to just one place, if every one of them was from Mexico, which is close, just the buses would destroy our economy without the loss. Does that make sense? See what I'm saying?
I think it's important to mention that it's virtually impossible.
Yeah. And the other statistic I've seen is that over the most recent one was I forget the number percentage. Well over half have been here more than 10 years.
It's just the sound bite. It's just an issue to divide people on based on what they look like, where they're from. It's creating a class system where people are working at jobs where people should be calling OSHA, but they're scared, or they're being taken advantage of, but they're scared because they don't know who's going to call ICE. They're afraid to report a crime against them because they don't know who's going to call ICE. So it's just creating this injustice for 12 million people. And it's not creating solutions. It's just more fear and division.
I think that's an interesting point. I think when you think about motivators, like what motivates you, I think that when you're thinking of fear is a great motivator. So when you tell people, something that pushes them, you can push them with fear, but you can also push them with love. And I think the strongest emotion is love. And if we stop for a second and we recognize that many individuals who are here who have to leave their home. I mean, think about it. Think about you having to leave your home, a place that you've tried to make your own, where you've tried to live and thrive and have children and whatnot, and you're forced in many ways to have to save your life and therefore leave everything behind. That's not an easy decision. And usually that's a decision that's made based on life or death. And I want, I think because I come from a country where there's so much death and so much persecution.
What country is that?
I'm from Egypt.
I was guessing Egypt. But.
Yeah. And so it's horrifying to think that someone else can go through that which I actually went back and experienced. I think because I went back and experienced it, and I didn't, in my wildest dreams, because I grew up for the most part here. And so I remember getting cases and thinking to myself, Lord have mercy, these are terrible stories. And I don't know what moved me, but I think it was love. I had to go back, and I went back by myself, and my family thought I was crazy, and now I'm beginning to think I am, yes. And when I did, I was treated pretty badly. And, it really came down to, I was treated very badly because, it's again that us versus them, and I was part of the them there. And because I was part of the them there, I was treated very, very badly. And when I don't need to go into the details, but when I came back here, I remember thinking to myself, Lord have mercy and give me the necessary compassion so as to ensure that I delicately, and with our team, delicately, and with, also a zealous nature, balancing the two, making sure that I'm able to tell other people's stories. Because what I imagine they have gone through and what I went through is not that different. But if you come in a life of comfort and where you're not, in essence, persecuted, and God bless you, that's wonderful. But for a moment there, recognize that not everyone has had that as a benefit or, as a way of life.
Right.
And I think that there's some value to taking yourself out of your comfort and going and experiencing something to open your eyes. And it really did. It opened my eyes. And it made me realize why I do what I do, which is always and has always been for Him, for God.
Let's do a hypothetical, so for understanding how it works. Let's say Ingmar decides to leave Denmark. He's not being persecuted. He just wants he just thinks it'd be better to live in America. So he gets a flight, flies to Canada, and then tiptoes across the border into Minnesota. Okay, and Sven's been living undercover as an undocumented person for 12 years. He's been working he's been doing odd jobs. He's making a living. He's built a house. He's got a life. He married someone else who also defected from did I say Denmark?
Yes,
Yeah, because there's a lot of that going on.
Can't imagine Denmark.
Yeah. So I'm trying to do something so there won't be a racial component to the
Yeah.
conversation. And this person, and people illegally immigrate from just about everywhere. So, we got Sven up in Minnesota, been there 15 years.
His name is Sven?
Sven, yeah.
Sven.
It was Ingmar to
Sven.
start with, but I changed it to Sven, back to Sven, because
Okay.
Sven's fit in Minnesota really well.
Okay.
And anyways, his middle name is Ingmar. Anyway, he now wants to become legal. He wants to become an American citizen. And he's been living so now we got 12 million Svens in America, but this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never broken any laws, but he's never gotten into paperwork. What would be the process now, current legal process?
Well, great. He can just bring the proof of all the taxes he's been paying. He can bring proof of continuous residence and just bring it to immigration and be kicked out of the country immediately. There's no, he doesn't have qualifying relatives. He's not facing persecution. The ICE right now would,
Bye-bye.
yeah.
But, how did he enter in from Canada? Did he have a visa, or did he just walk across?
He just snuck across.
He just snuck across. So,
Okay. Snow boots.
Does he have any children?
We'll make it more complicated and say no.
He doesn't have any children. So it's just him.
Well, he's got his wife who also got here, who came the same route.
Oh, okay.
You should bring all the proof of the volunteer work he's done here and just burn it. There's no, there's not, a good character. Oh, you're a citizen now. That's not.
So, and there is not a path
For him.
for him, for this person.
That's correct. If he entered in, barring any other facts you want to insert, if he didn't enter in with a visa, he doesn't have qualifying relatives, he has accrued unlawful presence, and in essence is just, he hasn't, doesn't have any children. Yeah, in this regard, she's right.
Sometimes there is special visas for there are too many other facts out there, just on this fact pattern.
Yeah, and this fact pattern.
Okay. So what would make it a little easier for our
So if he entered in with a visa,
okay,
that could make it easier.
what any specific kind of visa?
No,
or visa
he just
general?
has to have inspection. And actually, it doesn't necessarily need to be a visa per se, but visas are in fact, you have the necessary proof under those circumstances to show that someone entered in with inspection.
Would a tourist visa? I mean,
Yes.
because I'm going to Cambodia on a tourist visa,
Yeah.
and that would. Okay, so that
Yeah,
actually
so
that
that would
actually
work.
that actually helps.
Then if he entered in with a visa, then you can look at other routes. But the other factor I think is important is he's never had. Yeah, I'm inserting facts for you. So you go right ahead and insert.
We have to throw a few in.
Yeah, I know, to make it a little bit more
Make it-
interesting. If we are under the current set of lack of discretion, I guess you could say, just no discretion whatsoever, we're going to have a more difficult time creating discretionary avenues by which you can proceed upon. Because there are other things. If Sven, am I saying his name right?
Sure.
If Sven,
He's a fictitious character, so.
yeah, I know, but I don't want to butcher your fictitious character. If Spin is just, has had an impeccable life, he's in essence maybe done some impeccable volunteer work or something to that effect, there are things that we can look into or explore. But on your fact pattern without a visa, I think it's important to mention there's, in that regard, we're having some, that's where there is no incorporation for him.
And because it would seem to me that of those 12 million,
Yeah.
a significant percentage didn't get here with any kind of visa.
A significant,
I have
but
no
I
idea.
think
You have no way
actually,
to figure
I
that
think
out.
we were talking about this before. I think there's a lot more with visas, but nonetheless, I think that a lot of individuals came here without visas.
And even if he had, let's give him a couple kids
Yeah.
to make life a little easier, because those kids are automatically citizens, right? Which does that?
If they're born
helps.
here, yes.
If they're born here,
Mhm.
so that would help potentially
For defensive purposes.
for defensive, just keeping getting kicked out, but it wouldn't help from the fact because
From an offensive nature, not on its face, unless he entered in with a visa, and then yes, it can.
okay, so and let's say Sven called you because he just moved to Raleigh, and he's got his visa because he did come over as a tourist to see.
Okay, so
He wanted to see Raleigh. He just wanted to see Raleigh really badly. And he has a visa, so he got here. And he's got whatever the pieces are, volunteer work. I don't know if that helps at all, but whatever.
it shows good work.
Yeah, he's got good. He's got all these things. This is you may not want to answer this question. How much is he allowed to pay you to make that happen? To make him legal with a path to citizenship?
I think that when it comes to quoting,
I know that.
Yeah,
I know that's a really terrible thing to do to somebody.
Well, it's always unique because what we try to do might be different than what another firm does. But we try to go right ahead when we speak with someone to try to give them the benefit of any reduction that we could possibly provide to them. But so I would have to actually sit down with Spin, or I wouldn't be able to.
Let's say Sven's done okay, so you don't have to worry about it.
But I can tell you this,
Mhm.
and I think this is more accurate in general. I think what a lot of individuals don't realize is when you start it's very difficult for just any layperson to navigate the immigration system, especially now,
Mhm.
where there used to be like maybe 2 pages to fill out for, let's say, an I-130 petition, just a normal petition. Now it's what, like 10 pages? I mean, and to think that's just someone who's not, versed in the law could just take these and they're asking you questions and you're thinking to yourself, I think they mean this, you know? You don't have a space here to write a narrative.
Mhm.
And if you do, they're not going to be reading, you know, the narrative. They're going to be thinking to themselves, okay, this person doesn't really understand this. It's not easy to navigate on your own. So you go out and you try to seek counsel, immigration counsel. Now, let's not even start to venture into some of the individuals that are out there that, you know, are not lawyers but holding themselves out to be lawyers, because, you know, there's a lot.
Scam artists out
There are scam artists out there, so you have to be very careful. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, you seek out the advice of a reputable attorney like ourselves, and by the grace of God, you're able to sit down in a consult. That's not going to be inexpensive, especially if you're talking about going from A to Z. And so individuals also have to recognize it's not easy from a financial component, and let's not forget there are also filing fees from an immigration component for the government.
They let their money too.
Well, they have to, and to some extent we can understand that, but it's not cheap.
So,
It is quite expensive. So it does become, you know, even with the broken system we currently have, it becomes even that much more difficult.
so it's, we're talking 5 or 6 digit number?
I don't know about 6, but I mean,
No,
you know,
it's
yeah, but I think you
I'm just
can
guessing.
be talking about 5, but let's not.
the reason I wanted to bring it up is just obviously, I mean, of those 12 million, how many have
That kind of money.
that kind of money if they had everything else in place?
Yes.
Okay.
It's such a difficult thing, and it, you know, back in the day, I say this like I'm very old. I am, but I don't want to age myself. The fees used to be less expensive, and also the legal fees used to be less expensive. But because everything has gone up, things have gotten more expensive, and they're thinking about increasing the filing fees even more. So we are really talking about having to incorporate that as part of your life savings. And it's not easy to navigate, financially speaking or otherwise.
So I'm Sven, and what's the other?
So you have U.S. citizen children, but even your U.S. citizen child has to be 21 before they can petition for you, even if he came in with a tourist visa.
Okay.
So he's still 21 years, so just
So-
limbo.
Yeah, and 21 years that if he gets pulled over for the right
Yes.
thing, it could trigger everything.
Well, it seems like the right thing could be anything.
Oh yeah, speeding could be, anything could start the dominoes.
That's correct.
And I guess because my biggest, I'm a real pragmatist. I'm just coming up. I'm just, you know, I've got a heart, but I'm also very much a pragmatist who also comes from the faith perspective. I bring it all together. But to me, the problem is the biggest,
Yes.
realest problem is I got 12 million people. I can't physically move them out. Okay. I can't afford for them to leave.
That's correct.
And there's not any way for them to practically change their status. And to me, as a pragmatist, this is just a huge problem that, I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot. Really, we should be talking about that problem. I mean, you know,
And I think you've hit the nail on the head, but I don't think that anyone wants to talk about it because nobody has the most appropriate solution. I think what we can come to terms with is there are individuals out there that are really law-abiding individuals, by and large, or individuals that are out there who have, you know, left and sought out literally refuge here, that we need to ensure at the very least that we're not closing those doors, right? I think at the very least, if we take a look at the 12 million, they may have some solutions. We shouldn't take away those solutions. We should better facilitate the current solutions that are here than taking them away, which is in fact what's going on, which is taking away the legal immigration. So the last thing I would want is to see the 12 million not have in place what has otherwise been in place and bettering the system.
Mhm.
The last thing we should do is to make the system worse. What I would love to see is, reform, practical reform that would allow the 12 million to become lawful. Not necessarily, because I know it's a big jump to say to U.S. citizenship, but to ensure that individuals can come out of the shadows and perhaps be able to pay more money into the economy and help their fellow neighbor. So that way we can, come towards a possible solution.
One of the things that just I find fascinating, because it's a symbol of how broken the system
Yes.
is that, which I should look at my numbers before I came up here, so I had the data exactly right. But there are billions of dollars paid in taxes to the IRS
Yes.
every year by undocumented slash
That's
illegal.
correct.
But they pay that because there is a hope that somewhere down the line there will be something that says there is a path, and if you've been paying taxes for 6, 7, 8, 10 years, that would look good on the rest. So they're paying taxes just hoping, and
they're paying higher taxes, mind you.
yeah, and then they come back. Well, why don't we use that to find them? But there are also laws in place that make it illegal for the IRS. So it's like the system is worked. The system actually is configured currently to work against itself.
That's correct. I am so fascinated by the fact that you've indicated this. So we do not give work authorizations or social security numbers to individuals who do not have what is called employment authorization, which needs to be attached to some sort of lawful presence or lawful status, right? So there are individuals who don't have that employment authorization, don't have that social security number, are working. And by the grace of God, bless their hearts, because they really are paying a lot of money into our economy on a higher rate. I mean, I think they make very little on that dollar. They give it to us. And what they then do is the IRS, right, says you can have a number in order to be able to take all the monies that you've otherwise worked in, despite the fact that we're not giving you employment authorization, so that way you can pay taxes. Okay, what is it? Do you want my money? Do you want me to try to work, or do you not? I mean, it is that to me, when I'm discussing things of this nature, whether it be to clients or to our community members, I'm thinking to myself, this is bizarre, right? This is where here you have an entity of the government saying, pay, 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 and many individuals do, and here you're saying, you can't, you can't, you can't. It's like, and so you really have to respect a person for saying, I'm going to, and I'm going to do this the right way, and I know I'm giving everything to you, but by the grace of God, maybe God will open up a pathway for me tomorrow. I think that's beautiful. But I mean, would another person do that?
No, say something.
No, I mean, it's just, it's like the government knows they're here.
Yeah, they know.
And they know they're running businesses and, employing people and contributing and building, like, I'm not stereotyping, but building everything. No.
Because I know there are people, I don't know this, but I've talked to somebody who knows somebody, so I'm going to trust that those people, that there are people running businesses who are non-citizens, and not here legally.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds terrible, but it's true. I never hear about a raid sending the owner back.
Yeah.
They only seem to raid where they can send the dishwasher back, but they never. So how hard is it to figure out, if you're the government, that this guy who's employing 80 people is not a legal citizen? How hard is that to figure out? But they never figure that out.
I don't know if they don't.
Or, I mean, they don't. That's what I mean, is I think they know, and they just choose that.
So it's like, what are you really trying to stop here? Are you really trying to stop fraudulent, like a fake social security number scheme? Is that really like the government's goal here is because you were using a made-up social security number instead of an ITIN number. Is that really what you're trying to put it into?
Yeah.
It's like,
Because the way I see the system working right now, as far as the political system, is simple. There's a constituency that is easily I don't want us to do the whole do's and don'ts. The law and order people. It's easy to, if you're a politician, and I'm going to assume all politicians are terrible. I'm just going to start there. I'm not going
You want to start with
I'm
that
going to start with that because I know there are good ones who are fighting, but the politician on the right knows he can keep getting elected, she can keep getting elected, as long as they throw the bromides about law and order and all this. And the left recognizes the best way for them to get elected is to simply show pictures of people being persecuted and blame it on the right. So they get elected. So as long as we keep this status quo,
we're not going to get anywhere.
we're not going to get anywhere. And both of them are getting reelected by maintaining the status quo, not by fixing it. If they were going to get elected by fixing it, I think the three of us could sit down right now in an hour and fix it.
I think so too.
We could come up with a broad, okay, here's the plan, here's how we're going to do. We're going to be in the country this long, done this.
background checks and employment
Employment,
authorization. There you go.
and we could fix it in the rest of the afternoon and get home for dinner. Come up with the broad outline for
But
fixing.
that's not going to get us elected.
But we'll never get elected that way.
Yes.
And so one of the reasons I like to do stuff like this is I like to get the people who don't know the facts. And we try to talk in facts. We've occasionally got into opinion. But for the most part, we've talked about this is legally, this is really where it is. This is
The law.
This is the law. This is how the law is set up. And this is how the system works and doesn't work. And my hope is that if we can actually educate enough people to the fact that the biggest problem here is solvable. The 12 million is a solvable problem. If we,
We choose to actually.
everybody has to take, everybody has to take a deep breath and, go ahead.
I wouldn't call 12 million people a problem. It's
Yeah.
how the system is dealing with the 12 million people.
Right. Yeah, there is a problem that involves 12 million people, and the solution is not. I think most Americans. You could take any 10 Americans who weren't total idiots, and get them to who are willing to. It's hard to find 10 who aren't total idiot, but people who are willing to put aside a lot of political stuff and say, I want to practically solve this problem. You could take 100 groups of 10 people, and they'd all come up with very, very similar solutions. I believe that's true. I believe they'd all come up with, okay, we have to do this, this, and this, if we just take the facts. So, my hope is that as we can educate some people, and if we start the education, then because I'm a pastor
Yes.
who stays undercover,
How do you do that?
you have hair and a beard like this, it helps a lot. And you talk about things you're not supposed to talk about. If we could just get the education, then we can get past hopefully get into the Christian aspects of what the Bible teaches clearly about how we're supposed to deal with people who are immigrants. And I've always found
to recognize that Jesus Christ was an immigrant in Egypt.
Yeah, to do all those, the Bible's, somebody, what were they talking about? It was about family issues and how, the cultural, and I said, yeah, and I agree with that, but there's more stuff in the Bible about dealing with the people who are weak and poor and needy. One of my favorite, if you don't mind, just this much of a sermonette. I stole this from other pastors, it's not really mine, but there's an incredible verse in John right before Jesus washes the disciples' feet, and it says that, paraphrasing, that at that point Jesus knew who he was, and he knew that all power and authority had been given to him. He realized he was the most powerful being in existence. And the next verse is, so he took off his robe and he washed his disciples' feet.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And that's what we are, as Christians, called to do, is if God gives you power, he always gives it to you for the benefit of those who do not have it. If you get through the entire Bible, that is one of the biggest storylines throughout the Bible, is God gives a person authority and says, okay, now I want you to use this for people who don't have it. And so that's for my Christian stuff. I like to use
love that.
I like to use the
Really
pragmatic
use
stuff to get through the door. But what really makes my heart beat fast is the reality that Jesus calls us to care for the weak in every area of our lives. And if we're not doing that, and we're not doing it right. And so that's the preacher shows up once
No,
a
and
year.
I actually love that. And I guess I think that's so beautiful, and it really does, at least for me, will allow me to be able to present arguments also consistent with that. I don't hide who I am. I don't hide my faith. And it is who I am, and it's always going to be part of who I am by the grace of God. But are we saying that we're trying to reach those individuals who are electing people into these status quo positions so that way they can change their understanding by knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, if I stop voting for the person voting against the person who makes me angry, and vote for the person who actually makes sense,
Yes,
and is actually, see, we don't reward politicians for facing issues.
that's correct.
And if we start rewarding politicians for facing issues, they'll start facing issues. They're just
doing what the system is turning them to do.
yeah, we pay them in votes, and we vote based on just weirdest stuff. Okay, well,
Who has the best commercial?
who has the best commercial? Who makes me mad as the other
Yeah.
person? And it's like, wait a second, what's your plan for issue X? And if we can start actually voting principles and solutions instead of knee-jerk reactions, who knows? Maybe I'm a cockeyed optimist, but
No, maybe we will get some individuals in there that will actually approach this issue. I mean, Reagan, a Republican president, approached this issue and actually really implemented a solution that a lot of people now cringe at in regards to the word. I dare not say it. But he did it because I think he really was trying to see a reasonable solution for that which he saw as a problem.
that's why you're right. I told you would have trouble talking. I told you before we
Oh,
started
no.
that
I
you
was-
but and one thing I always try to bring in too, because I know this is not excluding having secured border. That's
No, of course not.
we're not saying we don't want to,
No.
it's because it's
We're
not.
incorporating the border in our discussion as well. I mean, that's the reason why Ms. Gitlin had indicated you're supposed to come to the border. I mean, that means it has to be secure.
So because I'm not sure nobody's hearing me saying, well, just let everybody in. That's not a solution. That's not how you run a nation. Especially when you're the nation that has the most stuff. Because lots of people want to come to the nation with the most stuff. Well, close to, I don't have to tell the most stuff, but we have more stuff than almost anybody, and huge borders. And so, we can secure the border and attack the other real problems. And I think that's where I'm going to. Okay.
I think your servant goes to if you have the privilege to be an American, there's so much privilege that goes along with it. It's crazy. And if you can vote, maybe think about that. Are you doing it for your own self-preservation? Are you voting for you? We're a global community. You can't ignore what happens. You can't just say, okay, put up the borders and that's it. It's 2019, everybody is connected. Everything that you buy, everything that you touch during the day, everyone you come in contact with, there's, in a way, there's no such thing as borders because they're our neighbors. They're coming here because of our history and everything that happened before. So it's you can't ignore the context. So when you vote, and it's not just a national level, it's a local level, state. Immigration isn't just everybody from the local law enforcement policies to North Carolina, it's all interconnected. So think about it when you vote or who you're voting for.
Yeah, that's
On all levels.
on all levels. Let's start asking real questions and asking for real solutions to that. Is there anything that you wanted to make sure was said during this time that has not been
I'm trying to think. Now, I think, at least for me, this is a discussion that I could have, and say a lot more, so I'm not going to even go there. But I do want to come back to your sermon because I think it is so beautiful. I think in that regard, when you think about what Jesus gave us, and with respect to the privilege of being American, I think we also have to recognize that if Jesus turned around in recognition of being the most powerful individual at that moment, and he turned around and took off his robe and started washing the disciples' feet, I think we have to recognize we need to now, proverbially take off our robe and turn around and wash his children's feet, and metaphorically speaking, and in reality, serving and not fearing, and recognizing we are all one. And I think with love, we can come to a solution, but we need to dissipate, we need to throw away the fear and the hate and me versus them, or we versus them.
I want people to know, Christians from all over the world are using our asylum system to save their lives and their families' lives.
That's a big thing for me. I mean, what's happened to the church, we can't talk about that, but just what's happened to the church in Iraq, Iran, the Middle East in general, Syria, the number of Christians who've had to, churches that are
Being wiped away.
1,000 years old.
Literally burning.
So anyway, that's a whole different topic.
Oh, it is.
We don't have time for that. Well, thank you folks very much. I enjoyed the conversation we're having before. I wish some of this was on the video because this is gonna be. I think we got back to most of it. And I thank you for taking time, and I thank you for not billing me for the time.
Well, we might give you a bill afterwards.
Oh darn it!
I'm just kidding.
Edit that part out. All right. And thank you so much. And I pray God blesses your business and your work.
Service. Yes.
Thanks for doing this series.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job. I mean, when we corresponded, I thought to myself, "Wow, like this is in the trenches. Like this is wonderful."
Yeah, I'm not very smart.
No, you clearly are.
So we gotta go where it's not safe.
Asking questions is the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I've heard that. So I've heard.
Yeah, I heard it somewhere too.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. If you have questions, you can feel free to shoot them at us. We may be able to answer them at some point. I can pass them to them. And thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.